I said I was going to do it on my Wednesday live stream. It's a triple base stag showdown. That's right, it's my favorite batch of all time, batch number 12 versus 22A and the new 23C. I think 23C has a good chance of doing something here. It's a hell of a batch. Let's see what happens. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? Welcome back to the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. I am Jason C. Like, subscribe, and do all the things to help me get to 100,000 subscribers for the year 2024. Appreciate the support, everybody. So today's triple bass kind of came up on my Wednesday night live stream. I tried 23C for the first time and absolutely loved it. I thought it could have been, a real contender. It did really well against 22A, and I do want to see how it goes against my favorite batch of all time, which is batch number 12. So before we do that, make sure you write down in the comments any other suggestions you may have for a double bass or triple bass episode. Always love hearing from you guys. And with YouTube really focusing in on the algorithm more often than not these days, it always helps the channel and helps the channel get a little bit more viewership. So thank you to that. All right, the contenders, here we go. First, let's start with the newest one. This is Stag 23C. It comes in at 125.9 proof, which is definitely a lower proof point for a stag as of late. Now, it's not age stated, but the reported age is somewhere about 7 or 8 years old. It retails for about 70 bucks if you're lucky enough to find it at retail. Now, for the other two batches, basically the same rules apply, except the proof points are different. The 22A, which actually released after the 22B, comes in at 132.2 proof, while my favorite batch of all time, batch number 12, comes in at a 1/10 of a point higher at 132.3. So this is your first double bass, in this case triple bass episode. Basically what I do is I nose them, taste them, I rate them on nose, palate, and finish. Basically the one with the most points wins. Now, being that these are all stags, it's gonna be close, but I'm just curious if there's any real differences here between the three. All right, it's time for number one, here we go. This is a stag through and through. You're looking at grape, a little bit of cherry, a little bit of oak here. I assume that we're gonna have a little bit of oak on all three of these because that's why I like these three batches. I think it balances out a lot of the sweet. All right, nose on number one's good. Let's go to number two. All right, number two is definitely more fruit forward rather than the oak, so it's kind of taking a little bit more of a step back on the oak, although it's there. But man, this leans into more of the kind of like a cherry cola note rather than the grape that I was getting in number one. Man, that thing smells fantastic. And number three. So number three is a little bit sharper. It's actually the most ethanol I'm getting on all three of them. A little bit more alcohol punch here, but still a good amount of oak, a little bit of, again, that kind of grape cherry note, a little bit more of a vanilla caramel thing going on here rather than the dark fruit. But again, a little bit sharper, but it is fruity. Man, as far as the nose, I think it's gonna be between 1 and 2 here. Man. I think I'm gonna give the nose to number two. I think number two takes it. It's got a bigger punch of flavor up front, while I am still getting a little bit of oak, not as much as one, and not as ethanol forward as number three. So it's palate time. Here we go. Oh, holy hell. It's a good day when you're drinking three stags. Just saying. This is viscous. There's a lot of texture here on this particular one. Again, that grape strawberry note is there. A little bit of kind of a powdered sugar, oak for sure. Another sip here of that one. And just a hell of a spice there on the back end. We'll get into finish here as we go, but man, this is a good balance of oak, sweet, dark fruit, exactly what I look for in a good stag, Stag Junior, whatever the hell you want to call it these days. I feel like I'm getting more used to saying Stag now rather than just Stag Junior. Yeah, it was a process. Like, it took me a while to, get Stag Junior out of my head. I was fighting against the man. I didn't want to call it just regular Stag. I still want to say Junior, but I think I'm kind of getting used to it now. All right, let's go to the second one here. Man, this was my favorite on the nose. See what it does on the palate here. So somewhat like the nose, on the palate, it's more cherry forward to me. I think the first one has a little bit more of a mix of grape and cherry, while the second one here is really leaning into the, like, that cherry cola note. I don't know, I think maybe number one has a little bit more depth to it on the palate versus number two. But I don't know, that's really, oh wait, here's the finish now. The finish on number two is kind of sneaky. All right, one more sip of this one. Yeah, I think I maintained my statement after taking the first sip. Not as much punch on the palate. It's a little bit easier to sip here versus number one, but still very good. All right, number three, here we go. Number three now was the most interesting on the nose. It wasn't as fruit forward. I was actually getting a little bit more alcohol here, so let's see what it does on the palate. Oh, the palate's really nice. Again though, just like the nose, less fruit forward than 1 and 2. This is a little bit more oak forward, a little bit more of a typical caramel vanilla note that you would get in a good bourbon. This doesn't bring me, it's not bringing me as much of those Stag flavors that I like, which is interesting because all three of them on their own I feel like I really love, but now that I'm comparing all three of them, one of them is falling a little short here. Yeah, I think from palate, from, I guess, I'm not going to say first to worst, but I'm going to say in order of my preference, I think it's all about glass one. Glass one is delicious, then it's glass two, then it's glass three. So right now, glass two has the nose and glass one has the palate. This one is probably going to be ruled out. There's no way it could catch up. So it's really going to be between these two for the finish. So let's see what we get. So there's two big differences here that I was getting on the finish, I think, between 1 and 2. And that's when you get the finish. The first one, I feel like the finish is immediate. Whereas on the second one, the palate is not as prevalent, but you do get a little bit of a later punch on the finish. I still think number one may take it here. I might have to give the finish to number one. Let me just take one more sip here. I bring that glass up to my nose. I mean, candy. But again, a good amount. It almost takes me to a little bit of a root beery place on number one. Yeah, that one sells me, man. Number one for the win. I don't know which one that is, but we're about to find out. Number one for the win. Let's find out what number three was, which ended up not really getting any points. And that one goes to, making sure the sticker's still there. That's a surprise. That one goes to 22A. As much as I love this on its own, when it came to the other two, it kind of fell a little flat. This is why you do blinds, guys. This is why you do this stuff and you really figure out what you're like. There's nothing wrong with either of these three. All three are delicious, or I wouldn't have even chosen to put it in this blind tasting. But man, when you start nitpicking each one, I don't know. Again, this is my palate, guys. You guys can let me know down in the comments as far as what your favorite Stag is of all time. Is there another kind of a Stag three-way that you want me to put up against each other? So now it's going to come down to the top two here. Is number one still batch 12, my favorite of all time, or did the 23C take it out? Let's see what we got. No way. Number one, and still undefeated for me, is batch 12 of Stag. This is when Stag had the junior. 132.3 proof. I will say, however, that the 23C made things very interesting, and it definitely stood out over the 22A. So if any of you guys have been lucky enough to get the 23C, I think it's a great batch. I really love it. It's actually pretty close to batch 12. I think it lacks a little bit of the balance and some of that, the balance between sweet and oak that I really like in the batch 12. But overall, 23C, I think, is as advertised. It's a really great batch of Stag. And if anyone out there has Stag Junior batch number 12, man, hold on to it. All right, guys, well, hope you enjoyed this triple base. We put Stag Junior batch 12 versus Stag 22A and Stag 23C. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, find me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments, like I said, any other ideas you have for some upcoming matchups. But before we go, as always, we're going to blend them all. I think I'm going to call this one the Stag Triangle. We'll have it since there are 3 sides to a triangle, all 3 going against each other. The Stag's Triangle. Let's see what we get here. Oh, it smells fantastic on the nose. I feel like at least on the nose it got better. Let's see what it does on the palate. Cheers, guys. Here we go. You know what? That particular blend I think could work, but right now it's at a point where I think some of the components are fighting each other. I feel like I'm getting the ethanol of 22A and that deep, rich, like cherry cola note from 23C, and it's kind of fighting each other. But I feel like if I played with the proportions here, that could be something really good. So with all that said, like I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share with. Cheers. See you next time right here on The Master and Drum. Take care, folks.